Let's talk playoffs. That's what the people want to see. Can the Cowboys make the playoffs? We'll pull up the NFC playoff picture. The Eagles have clinched the NFC East. They will be without Carson Wentz for the rest of the season.
Super Bowl blowing chances for them.
Possibly. The Vikings sitting there at 10-3, leading the North. The Rams lead the West at 9-4. The Saints in a very, very competitive NFC South, leading the way currently because of tiebreakers over the Panthers, and then the Falcons there taking the other wild card spot at 8-5. In the hunt, and we're going to get into the scenarios here in just a second. Cowboys are rooting against Seahawks, Lions, and the Packers, of course. Cowboys do not hold a tiebreaker over the Packers or the Falcons because of earlier in the season losses. Let's take a quick look at the Cowboys' schedule. 3 games left. Cowboys at 7-6. At Oakland this week, a sputtering and just disappointing Oakland Raiders team this season. Early in the season, these last 3 games looked like a gauntlet. That Oakland game looks a little bit easier now. You've got the Seattle game with Ezekiel Elliott coming back, and then at Philadelphia in Week 17. Will it mean anything for Philly? Remains to be seen. Philly's schedule the last 3 weeks is pretty soft, so it could be that the Eagles still get home field advantage clinched up.
Eagles' magic number is 2.
Yep.
If they win 2 games, they have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Minnesota. That's actually been locked in because of common opponents. The Vikings losing to the Panthers really helped out the Eagles, actually. So the Eagles, if they win their next 2 games, they're actually playing for nothing in Week 17, which could be huge for Dallas.
It would really help Dallas get an extra win. So got a reaction poll for you guys. Before we get into those playoff scenarios, will the Cowboys finish 10-6? Use the heart button. Use the wow face for 9-7, laughy face for 8-8, and then an angry face if they don't win another game this season. Tom, where are you sitting?
And people aren't going to like this. I kind of think the Cowboys are going to lose 1 game down the stretch. I don't know which one it's going to be. The Seattle game actually concerns me the most. I do think they beat the Raiders this week, hint, hint. But I think for the playoff race, Brett, if the Cowboys are going to make it, they have to win 10 games. They will not win tiebreakers with teams like the Falcons, the Seahawks, the Lions, the Packers, and everyone else. They will not win those tiebreakers. So the Cowboys, if they're making the playoffs, they got to win out.
As expected, I see a lot of hearts. I think the Cowboys can get to 10-6. Will they, of course, is the question. I'm thinking either 9-7 or 10-6 here. I like 10-6, though, Tom. I think they beat the Raiders this week. I think they get Zeke back and are able to beat the Seahawks at home. Because of that. I think the pass rush, Cowboys pass rush, is going to be a big deal against that Seattle's
not as good on the road.
And if you have Sean Lee back, then you can play that spy game with Russell Wilson, not let him do too much of those things. And then Eagles, I do think, even without Carson Wentz, Eagles going to win their next 2 games. They won't be playing for anything in Week 17.
That's the best case scenario.
Hopefully, they will sit there trying to get healthy because they've had plenty of injuries this season as well. That gets the Cowboys to 10-6. So, hey, Cowboys are at 10-6. Let's talk playoffs, right?
Yeah, playoffs.
No, it's not that simple, folks. Scenarios assuming the Cowboys win out. Let's take a look at these. Let's start first with the Vikings and the Saints. More or less, these are teams that you want to cheer for.
And look at why. The Vikings play the Packers and the Saints play the Falcons. You want Minnesota and New Orleans to win those games, help you out against the Packers and Falcons, 2 teams that are still in the playoff mix. And frankly, the Cowboys aren't going to catch these teams. Because look, the Saints and Vikings both play a 5-win team and a 4-win team. So they're going to be in. The Cowboys are hoping Minnesota and the Saints keep winning. Minnesota did not help the Cowboys out last week, losing to the Panthers.
Cowboys didn't get a lot of help last week.
Last 2 weeks, really.
There's one very, very key game on here. And no, Tom, it's not Saints-Falcons. It's Vikings-Packers. Because you know who's back this week. And if you let Aaron Rodgers into the playoffs, he's going to do some things that people aren't going to like yet again. Vikings-Packers, that is the key game to watch right there. Saints need to beat the Falcons, of course, but the Falcons do have another couple of games that could be losable for them. All right, let's take a look at the Rams and the Panthers as it relates. Once again, all of these scenarios are moot if the Cowboys don't get to 10-6. They're not making the playoffs at 9-7.
We'll start with the Rams here. The Cowboys are now cheering for Los Angeles because they lost the head-to-head tiebreaker. Brett, you're looking pretty excited there. What you got?
I got a comment from Benito Juarez saying we cheer for the Cowboys only. Well, it's okay to cheer for some other teams when it helps the Cowboys, Benito.
Because you are cheering for the Cowboys as a result.
That's right.
So that's also why we left the Eagles off here.
That's right. We're not cheering for the
Eagles. So the Rams. The Cowboys will not win the head-to-head battle because they lost earlier this year. And frankly, you want the Rams to beat Seattle.
Yep.
You don't want the Cowboys to come in next week with Seattle having won a game, because then you're still kind of behind the eight ball there, because then Seattle's got 9 wins. They end up controlling their own destiny if they win.
And we'll tell you why in just a second when we get to Seattle.
Yes. So you want the Rams to, in reality, you want the Rams to not, the worst case scenario for the Cowboys is the Rams finish with 10 wins. And the Cowboys also finish with 10 wins, because they're not going to win that head-to-head tiebreaker. A similar road for Carolina, but you're also cheering for Carolina because they play the Packers and the Falcons. Carolina can really help out Dallas by beating Green Bay and Atlanta. And that would be a big boost for Dallas if Carolina takes care of business, finishes with 12 wins or 11 wins, losing to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that Panthers-Packers, say that 5 times fast. I mean, this week, both of those teams have key games. Rams-Seahawks, Panthers-Packers as it relates to the Cowboys. All right, let's get into the teams that the Cowboys are really competing with for that final playoff spot. Again, assuming the Cowboys win out and get to 10-6. Falcons, Seahawks. Those are the teams to really watch for. And in the end, folks, Cowboys need these teams to lose twice.
And it's also because the way the tiebreakers work out, you go to head-to-head, you go to common divisional opponents. So head-to-head, it could matter for Cowboys versus Seattle if the Cowboys win that game. But you're also going to probably face a scenario where if that ends up happening, that the Cowboys and Seahawks aren't the only teams with 10 wins or the only teams with 9 wins. And the Cowboys head-to-head kind of doesn't matter at that point. They continue to move on. The Cowboys' tiebreakers are not in their favor. The Cowboys lose a lot of the tiebreakers if there are multiple teams with 10 or 9 wins.
Yeah, and frankly, if the Seahawks were to beat the Rams, what it sets up is actually the Rams getting to 11 wins, and the Seahawks, regardless of that Cowboys game, sitting there at 10 wins, and there's an extra team in the wild card mix.
Exactly.
Cowboys can't get themselves to 11 wins.
So in reality, it's not fully limited if the Cowboys, if the Falcons or Seattle lose only 1 game. The Cowboys aren't totally limited if they win out, but in all probability, the Cowboys need Atlanta and Seattle to finish with 9 wins. So what that means is the Falcons, they're probably going to beat the Bucs. It's Tampa Bay. They're not very good. So the Cowboys fans want the Saints to beat Atlanta and the Panthers to beat the Falcons. That's huge there. And then with Seattle, you need them to lose their next 2 games. I don't think they're going to beat Arizona. Or I don't think they're going to lose to Arizona, excuse me. So you want the Falcons and Seattle to finish with 9 wins, or otherwise the playoff tiebreakers aren't in the Cowboys' favor this year.
Yep. All right, 2 more teams to look at, Packers and Lions. Again, assuming the Cowboys win out, because frankly, the Cowboys have to win out to have a chance. Packers and Lions, Cowboys really only need them to lose 1 time and be at 9-6. But here's their picture. Packers have 3 key games, all against tough opponents. I don't think the Packers are going to get to 10-6, which is good for the Cowboys.
Frankly, what I'm hoping for is that the Packers lose one of their next 2 games and then beat Detroit.
Yep,
because
that's what you need.
Detroit
could get to 10-6.
Detroit actually scares me because they play the Bears, Bengals, and we'll see what the Packers look like when Rodgers comes back. If the Packers lose 2 games, they might sit Rodgers week 17 and just not risk re-injuring him for next year. So the Lions kind of scared me the most. Remember, the Cowboys also have that head-to-head issue with the Packers if it ends up being just those 2 teams. So the Lions concern me the most. So the Cowboys, in the reality here, Brett, what we've said in the end is they got to win out, and then they need help.
All right, those are your playoff scenarios. We'll take a look one more time at the NFC playoff picture. Cowboys are rooting for the Vikings, the Rams, and the Saints, and the Panthers. And the Cowboys are rooting against the Falcons, Lions, Packers, and of course the Seahawks. Cowboys get to play the Seahawks there to hopefully have a little bit of control over the destiny. But then again, folks, it is very simple. Cowboys need to get to 10-6.
Yeah, 9-7 is not going to done.
At this point in the season, it's very simple. Cowboys have to get to 10-6, and then after that, it gets complicated. But if the Cowboys don't get to 10-6, they will not make the playoffs. Tom, let's ask the people. I'm going to ask you, do you think the Cowboys will make the playoffs?
Let me put it this way for you, Brett. I saw this comment coming in from Drew Kirchman, said, what are the actual odds of our Cowboys making the playoffs?
Not good.
4%. Or 3%, depending on which site you use. Those are the odds right now. So in the end, Brett, I think the Cowboys get to 9 wins. I think they come up just short. So I will be cheering for them to make the playoffs. I think there's too much that needs to happen right now for Dallas. I think they come up just short in the very loaded NFC. If they were in the AFC, they would make it. But in the NFC, I just don't like where they're sitting.
Yeah, you'd like to be in the AFC West this
year.
It'd be great. Be in first place in the division. Tom, I'm with you. I don't think the Cowboys make the playoffs. at this stage. It's a tough road to get to 10-6, first and foremost. And then even if you're at 10-6, there's still a lot that has to happen. I think the Cowboys put too many eggs in other teams' baskets this year. Obviously, the Ezekiel Elliott.
I mean, all it takes is Atlanta to pull one upset, and at that point, it's like, well, sorry, Cowboys, you're not going to make it.